Hey guys, what's up? It's Lizzy Jane, and we are back in the mix. I cannot tell you how ecstatic I am to be back releasing these podcast episodes. I love recording them so much, especially coming off our first live series for a live audience at SolFest. This week, we have Inzo joining me. We are broadcasting the live conversation that happened in the middle of Alabama about a month and a half ago. It honestly worked out perfectly timing wise because his new EP, Earth Magic, is dropping this week, which is so exciting. We completely nerd out from everything to do with production techniques, frequencies, magic, and earth and nature. And we both live in Denver, Colorado. So, we had to talk about the scene out there, the vibes, and everything in between. It was such a lovely conversation and awesome opportunity to sit down with Mike. And I surely hope to do it again. Without wasting any time, let's hop into the conversation. This is Lizzy Jane, and you're tuning into my podcast with special guest Inzo. Hey guys, so lately I've seen a ton of larger shows I've been playing at that a lot of these festivals and venues are no longer allowing bags that are not clear. Well, guess what? Lunchbox Packs is coming in clutch again. They have just stepped up their anti-theft bags by releasing a fully clear hydration pack and snack pack. This is an absolute game changer for your summer festivals and events. Each bag is made out of TPU material that is incredibly durable, flexible, and made to not alter under extreme sun exposure over time. You also have the option to bring a skin in your bag on the way in, and once you're through that security line, you can zip on your skin for privacy of your belongings and to add some extra personalized fun flair. These hydration packs meet the majority of all festival regulations and guidelines. As always, these packs have all of the awesome anti-theft features as the original hydration and snack packs. Make sure you use code LizzyJane for $10 off any hydration pack and code LizzyJ for $5 off any snack pack. I will see you at the rave. The show today was brought to you by Vitaplur E-Boost Gum. With no pill to take or powders to mix, Vitaplur E-Boost Gum is a first-of-its-kind energy rave supplement that provides magnesium, electrolytes, and antioxidants while you chew. Vitaplur is the perfect complement to my active lifestyle, whether it's at the festival, on the road touring, or hitting the gym. Chew Vitaplur and dance with confidence. Use code LizzyJane for 10% off any order.
Mike, Inzo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here. Before we start, it's like the proper intro to begin.
Always. It's always there.
25 more seconds. Come on, then.
This is actually so refreshing. I'm like, kill.
Almost there.
Which says like the purpose.
Ooh. All right.
All right. And we are set up to go. You are hanging around at SolFest this weekend.
Indeed, you gotta pick and choose your battles. We decided to hang around for this one this year. Seemed like a cool fest. This one and like Wakan we have mapped out to hang around for.
I love it. I mean, the vibes are high. I feel like you have done the festival circuit on and on for a good number of years now, and you never really know transparently with like independent festivals how it's going to go, and this is just love.
For sure. Yeah, this is a pleasant surprise. Absolutely. This is like my kind of favorite festival where it feels a little more, I don't know, not like, it feels a little more artsy in the sense, not so much like being seen, not like hate on that, but this feels a little more culturally.
Vibes.
Yeah, homey vibes, culturally gifted, in my opinion.
And I love it. It's like very big summer camp vibes. Like
For sure.
You got like the lake, and like yesterday when they were playing drum and bass, Miha and Blossom, I was like, damn, this is going off. This is actually so lit.
Yeah, summer camp vibes indeed. Like the water park was bumping today. I was so surprised when we came here. I was like, damn, everybody's in there just jumping off of like 20-foot ledges. It's crazy.
And I feel like that's how like a water section should look at a festival.
Absolutely.
Like it's on point. It's so much fun. You have a lot going on in your life right now. You just got done with a huge headline tour.
I just had a kid. I'm just kidding. But yeah, we just.
I was like, what?
No. Yeah, we're still doing the tour. A couple of days got pushed back. So we've been on tour for like several months now. It's the last 3 shows. Atlanta next weekend, and the last 2 are in Portland and Seattle in June. Which is nice though. It was a blessing in disguise. The Portland and Seattle days were supposed to happen a few months ago. But they were at these venues, and those shows sold out so far in advance. And we wanted to get venue upgrades to like bigger venues, but the dates weren't available. But there was like crazy weather that went through that weekend. That's why the show's canceled. And now we're able to do the Roseland and Numos, which are larger venues, so we get to like bring in more production and put on a better show. So
I mean, that's a great problem to have.
for sure. And like I've always had like a great time playing in the Pacific Northwest, so like ending the tour there feels proper, you know.
Absolutely. And I remember when that weather came through, I recently relocated to Denver. I think you have a homie Kovacs on some of the days.
Yeah.
Love him.
He just had his last date, unfortunately.
And last date, okay. I love him. I love the new music he's putting out. Super
Dude.
vibey, just like himself, and like a perfect fitting for the support bill. I
Absolutely.
remember that fucking storm, and it knocked everything out. It was like flights were canceled, everything was delayed, nothing was going in.
Yeah, it was like very like they weren't ready for it. That whole area, because they never get weather like that. Everything was icy. We were there in Portland, and it was just
So you
like,
made it there, and then it just didn't
like, the venue was like, we don't feel safe to have people come out for this, and it made sense. Like when we were on the road, we went and got tour tattoos, and just driving to the tattoo place, it was so icy. Like the roads were covered in ice. Nobody was driving. And of the few people that were driving, it was kind of a shit show. So.
Yeah, that's probably a wise decision. You know, look out for the fans always.
Yeah. I think the last time they did do a show there with similar weather one time, and like there were reports of a lot of people getting in accidents, and they were like, they don't want to be responsible for, having to be the reason people leave in that weather. So.
Absolutely. And, at the end of the day, it's like, it's a good problem to have. You're out of your venue. It's going to be like a larger show, and it's a great way to end this headline tour. And this is kind of all going into your EP that is coming out in June, July.
Early June. The rest of it, that's the thing. It'll come out, I think, like the week of the rest of the EP will come out the week of those shows. So
I love that.
perfect. Yeah.
So that's kind of been your latest body of work. You've had a few singles drop. I would love to know some background kind of behind this EP, as it's kind of like this conceptual project that you recently been working on.
Indeed. Well, I'll nerd out for a second here. So the Earth Magic name kind of came from this idea of how Earth feels magical in the sense that we perceive sound the way we do because of our atmosphere. We have a unique medium of oxygen, nitrogen, all these other components. Sound waves travel through mediums in a certain way. Like in water, sound travels faster through water than it does air. There's no sound in space because of the medium, right? And so Earth's the only planet that we know of where we have this perfect medium where sound is able to be perceived the way that it is. And then on top of that, the sort of magical component is that with the right combination of frequencies and notes played and atmospheres created through those frequencies, it can release dopamine, serotonin types of feelings in the brain where you feel something. And the fact that is like a naturally occurring phenomenon and the laws of the universe based off the laws of physics, the fact that combination is there organically, and we can't quite explain how that just happens. It feels like magic. It's behind that in some way. And
Dude, I love
the fact that it exists again here only on Earth as we know it. So that's what Earth Magic. So.
Well, what a conceptualized, story, kind of storyboarding behind that. I love that. Are you a big science guy, kind of
Definitely.
physicist, all of that background, biochemistry?
Yes.
That
shit.
I think that's it's so cool the way that individuals and artists are able to kind of find their niche and how they want to express their project and kind of take these other hobbies and likings that they have in their life, whether it be science or sports or tech or so on and so forth, and like pour that into your project. And I really loved how you touched on just like frequency and like the unit of hertz in general, because it's so powerful, and it's kind of like this thing where it's this technical aspect that unless you're kind of like, I would say, kind of going into a little bit of production and producer talk, the way that you can automate EQs and erosion on frequencies. And I remember when I was first getting into production, looking at that kind of, I think it was like Mr. Blue's frequency to note chart, and you see the exact frequency for the exact note.
I still pull that up.
I do too. Yeah. I do too. I'm like, and it's such this like nerdy thing, but at the end of the day, when you hit that one frequency that's in key, whether it's kilohertz or radio hertz, and it's perfect, I think you really hear that in Skrillex's new album, where I hear so many little like notches made in like subtractive EQing that's with that, and it just hits. It hits.
100%. Yeah, the notches are cue for our cue.
I love this.
Like, in my mind, I'm looking at the EQs like notes right now.
So you're like visually, I know.
Key. The notches are key is what I meant. Yes, absolutely.
And especially, you can hear it in your studio and you can hear it on a sound system. But when you play it at festivals like this, and just festivals in general, like I think of Wakan, I think of people who kind of, you're not playing on a regular system, you're playing on Hennessy's, you're playing on this really top of the line audio system.
So important.
Important. It's so important for not only the type of music you make, but just makes music in general.
Absolutely.
And it kind of brings me to another question of conversation where you've kind of been able to not only pave your own path, but really thrive in this environment that very often calls for high energy, wonky bass music. And you definitely touch on that. You definitely have those bangers that are out there. But overall, I feel like your music becomes very cinematic. It becomes something that is really like a soundtrack to like people's lives or their stories. But yet at the same time, it could be heavy artist, bass artist, wonk artist, you, and then a headliner. Sure. How have you kind of come to approach that and, be okay with like looking out and everybody's not like really necessarily like losing their shit and headbanging, but they're just, staring and enjoying it. Is that kind of a trip?
Absolutely. It was honestly an adjustment at first. Like, especially on social media, you see certain videos of what's cool and what's in, you get the crowd reactions, and you're like, oh, that's gotta be what's happening because that's what's working. But as just a regular music listener, concert goer myself, I've enjoyed those moments where I know I'm not like losing my shit, going crazy, and kind of just like standing there taking it in. At first, not getting crazy reactions to the songs of mine that I play was definitely like, oh man, I don't know if people are liking this or not. But with seeing like DMs, tweets, and whatnot, people being like, this moment where it's like the song it goes in waves. It's like a really chill song, and people feel like that's my favorite part of the set. It's like it's just like definitely an adjustment at first. I was very in my head about it, but knowing that is indeed some of the more impactful moments of the set. I don't know. I've learned to embrace it, and I'm like very, very excited about those moments now, and like I don't shy away from it because like I have a soft spot musically for all this like cinematic feelsy stuff where you can just like stand there. It's just like pads, it's chords, just like an atmosphere, the drums, and you're just like feeling like you're transcending in some way. And that's the thing. I love like all music, so I want to be able to make those kind of like high energy, crazy moments. Kind of like bridging the gap between those worlds of like wonky stuff because I love that stuff, but then like the very cinematic, feelsy stuff where it has depth, feels like makes you feel something, and like that's I don't know. I've learned to embrace it for sure. Because at first I was definitely in my head about it, being like, oh, it's not like headbanging and stuff, so people liking it. But then after getting some feedback, it's been reassuring.
Absolutely, and I feel the same way singing because I don't come from like an electronic dance music background. Like coming up as a kid, I was a huge fan of jazz and classical rock and metal. And, when you go to those types of concerts or you go to like a Bonnaroo or an Electric Forest and you're seeing Fish or STS9, people aren't like losing their shit. They're just watching you. But coming from this type of culture, seeing people not lose their shit and understand that they're still engaged and they're still very much so there. They're just watching you. And it's more so like you're kind of, this conductor of not only being a DJ, but you're also being a performer. And it creates this like moment in time. But I also think it's a very special kind of aspect when you can have a project in the space do that, because it's almost like the dynamic range of your set.
Totally.
Instead of kind of going here and having one kind of chill song to reset, or maybe you go to drum and bass and then you come back down to 150. It's this huge array of BPMs. And I feel like very often when I listen to your music or your past EPs, it's like this thing where you write each song for itself, but yet it complements and it fits in the puzzle pieces of the other songs after it and before it.
For sure.
So in like
it's not intentional, by the way.
Not intentional?
No, it's not.
No way.
And I think that's just like because we have the gift of self-expression. I think that naturally that is something that is naturally occurring in the sense that there's always going to be an underlying consistent theme in a way that it's inevitable for me not to.
Yeah.
But like each song is supposed to be its own journey. I never like intentionally try to put the pieces together. I do want to do that though. Like my album that I will eventually try to make, I want to go with that being like, okay, album mode, each thing's going to be a cohesive thing to the next thing. But like for each song, even on EPs, it's like each song is its own thing. Wow. And if they feel like they're together, it's just, I can't help that does that.
It's perspective. I think the way that you as an artist kind of look at something, and then the way that the consumer or other artists receive your music and relate to your music will always differ vastly. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing about music and about what we do. It's
beautiful yet terrifying.
It's beautiful and terrifying, especially when you really like, I think every artist gives a shit about anything they release, but when you really have something invested, like every artist definitely has, whether it's in their kind of arsenal of demos or released EPs, released singles, they have those songs that you're like, wow, that really meant a lot to me. And I really invested a lot of my personal experience and my personal time into this said track. Those are the ones that are always the hardest to let go.
For sure. Absolutely. I have a hard time like putting music out often because of that process. Exactly. It's like, it'll never always be good enough, like in my eyes, in terms of like expressing myself. It always has to like be perfect in a sense, which it will never be. Art's never perfect and art's never done. So you always have to let it go eventually. But yeah.
It's towing that like bottom line where you say, okay, I've listened to this 1,000 times and I'm nitpicky on everything and it's time for it to go.
Yep. I've gone mad. Like my song Riff Magic that I put out on Slash EPs. It drove me mad actually for probably a week and a half or 2 weeks because I was replacing the snare sample for a week of several different snare samples.
Sounds like it.
This has to be the perfect snare. This isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't it. Just over and over. And it actually started to like translate into my daily life where I was second guessing not just the snare, but second guessing everything I was doing every day for that week. It took a toll on me immensely for sure. It's kind of crazy because totally different thing. It's like music production versus real like your daily activities, but it's almost like the habit. If you're doing that for hours, it just kind of inevitably carries over. And unfortunately, it kind of carries over and you're just like in that habit now of like thinking, am I picking the right orange right now at the Whole Foods? Is this the right one? I don't think it's the right one. It's the right one. That's it was a real thing.
It definitely is a real thing, especially when it's like, there is definitely a separation in what we do, or we at least try to achieve the separation of our personal life separated from our career and our project. But you invest so much of your life. I know, shout out Flies, love it. Shout out Alabama, shout out Flies every day. I'm like, the more I sweat, the closer they get to just stick. You want there to be a separation between you, yourself, your project, but very often they do intertwine, and you kind of, Mike becomes Inzo and Inzo is Mike, and
for sure.
And I've had those moments, and it's especially when you're making not only creative decisions, but decisions in retrospect to your career and how your career could progress or regress. You kind of go to sleep at night thinking about those and dream about those things, and it becomes your whole life.
Absolutely. This is why managers, music or art
shout out managers
can be helpful sometimes. So keep you in check and give you some perspective. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. some people have a project almost as if it's a different identity. Some people have projects where it's full representation of just who they are. That's probably more so me. Even by name, Inzo is Dress, my last name. It's been a nickname growing up. At least, and like musically speaking, it's just the best form of self-expression. The way I'm at the end of the day. It's not like a world or a persona of any sort that I'm trying to create. It's simply self-expression.
You literally took the words out of my mouth because I was about to ask, just because I've never spoken to you before, where the name came from. Did you always want to write this very kind of chill, cinematic, but still you have those wubs in there type of music? Or how did that really come about where you developed your sound?
That's the thing. The first stuff I ever got into, going back to like the crowd reaction stuff, it was like, Hardwell was big at the time, Siesta was huge at the time, and like the only crowd reactions you saw was when people were jumping up and down. Everybody was jumping up and down. I was like so into that. But musically, growing up, I was into everything like metal, funk, alternative, emo stuff, like really chill stuff. So I've always liked everything. And in terms of like finding my sound now and like where I'm at now, definitely did not even imagine I'd be making the kind of music I am. The first stuff I ever started making electronically was all like house stuff. Never released any of it. And then I started kind of like making some stuff that would sound like the people who I idolize all the time. I think that's a good practice in terms of finding your craft. Is you kind of have to somewhat mimic the people that you look up to, and that's part of the process of learning and like navigating the software, Ableton, stuff like that. And then once you figure that out, I never released anything. But then once I figured it out, I was like, okay, now that I know what to do, I think I actually know how to express myself properly. And then naturally just started making whatever I'm making now. But at the end of the day, too, art and music is never fully original. We perceive art, all of the music from other people, and it just goes through our brain and gets processed in our own sort of processor and comes out through our own processor in a way. So it's always influenced by somebody in some way, subconsciously or consciously. And so, through that processor, that's how I guess I've made my original stuff. But it's always inspired by anything and everything that way.
I love that. Like, one, shout out reference tracks, because I think every producer, when they're first getting into it, I think DJing helps a lot, making edits helps a lot, mashups helps a lot. Just anything that you're really in awe will help. When you first take that first step and you're like, how did they write this drum progression? And how did they design this sound? And then it goes to, looking at box fan or looking at a spectrum analyzer. How is this mixed down? And how is this, comparable? And I always say you kind of learn the rules in order to break them effectively on how you want to.
Totally.
And
well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But once you kind of know the techniques and you learn the techniques and you've made Skrillex over again a million times and you've made Virtual Riot over again a million times, or Flume or Odessa, then you say, okay, how do I put me into this? And I think that is the hardest part of all of it, is saying, okay, we have all of this now. How am I unique, and how am I going to flourish in that unique sonic, sound and style, and communicate that to the masses so they know that I exist? Who were some of your, what you said earlier, who were some of your like first inspirations as to like, wow, I really like what these guys are doing?
Probably like the biggest like wow butterfly feeling from somebody that I heard musically was Porter Robinson. Shit moved me. I heard language for the first time, like that chord progression.
Cry, tears.
Oh yeah, so epic. Porter Robinson for sure. Grizz is great, like unmatched. Like there's a lot I could say about Grizz. He's next level. Flume for sure as well. Electronically, yeah, those three are great. My good friends, LS Dream is also an inspiration in daily through and through as a person. Artistically, those are some of my top influences for sure. M83 is also
love.
Like they got the cinematic shit dialed. I love that. They're a big inspiration as well. Unfortunately, he does not vibe with the electronic music.
Dude, I remember that.
When I saw that, I was like, God damn it.
It was just like, it's kind of like one of those things where, a lot of people are like, don't meet your biggest inspirations because
100%,
they'll fucking
yeah,
kill
don't
your
meet your
dreams.
heroes. Yeah, I just sent this guy tweeted. He's like, "Well, there goes my hopes and dreams of collaborating with M83." I'm like, "Yep, you and me both, brother."
And it's crazy because you listen and you think like the back end of so much inspired to that is like analog synths and like actual electronic vibes.
Yeah, I also kind of get what he's saying in terms of like a specific kind of culture within the electronic music world. I get what he's saying, but it sounded wrong.
It did. It is what it is. It is what it is. But it's awesome.
The music's still great. I'll still listen to it.
Exactly. I think there's a huge thing that's happened just with the rise of social media where I'm a big kind of not culprit, but I'm a big supporter of separating the music and the person.
Yeah, totally.
Because there's tons of artists that I don't agree with
For sure.
what has happened and, you know, their personal beliefs, but I love their music.
Yeah.
And I think when something's been put out 10 years ago and it was groundbreaking and it's kind of one of those things like Kanye West, a huge person that I am, you know, his shit for me for a very long time. I was like, you know, the 2001 to 2010 stuff, you're like, this shit was insane for its time. And even though I don't agree with what has happened personally, I'm still going to respect the music.
For sure. I think that there's like a healthy balance of recognizing that. And at the end of the day, too, I think as we evolve as a species, we all are going to eventually learn that people have different opinions and we need to start accepting that more. And I think that is very fundamental for just
evolution in general.
Yes, absolutely. And that's okay. And like that's where dialogue and that's where better ideas come from. Disagreements, opinions, and being able to talk about it is then eventually come up with better solutions, come up with better ideas, different opinions. Where like it's all right, this opinion, and then you never know, a totally new and original opinion can form out of that through conversation. Regardless, though, you know, aside from associating that with people's art and whatnot, yeah. Unless there's like physical harm or like some really fucked up shit, and it's like, no.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you 100%.
Or like social opinions. It's like,
I think that happens with music a lot. I mean, I was just talking to Ravenscoon, and it's just like he brought up, I think, Nervo's album in like 2012, and how that was just so groundbreaking. You kind of listen to what Flume just put out, the little mixtape that he put out of the 10 songs, and you can hear, okay, this was mixed down and mastered in early 2000s. This was mixed down and mastered here. And over time with technology and just what we're able to do in a digital analog workstation, it really, you grow and you learn and then you build and it gets better, but it often changes. And it's like you kind of have seen bass music and just electronic dance music in general. The subgenres keep becoming more subgenre and there's new subgenres all the time, but none of that would come off the basis of having basic dubstep, basic house music, and basic EDM.
For sure. That's why I was like having a time of my life. I was at Skrillex Red Rocks recently.
I was too.
Oh, no way.
I was too.
Really
Came right from the airport.
Yeah, the most fun show I've ever been to.
Right. And isn't that a lot to say?
Totally.
Saying like I saw like the Louis Child Boys with us, 1788L was with us, like just seeing Closing was behind us, just seeing all these people being like, this was the best fucking show I've ever been to.
And I think even regardless of like the production or like whatever, it wasn't even that like crazy. But I think it was the fact that kind of going back to your point that in terms of where things stem from, that guy literally invented dubstep.
Thank you.
Technically,
Yes.
He invented it. And so just like seeing that guy, such a legend, he was like playing all his entire discography, like everybody was on the same page at that crowd, just like in awe, being like, this guy, we love you so much. This is so fucking fun. You're just playing all your old shit, everything. It was the most fun time for you.
Like,
but yeah, going back.
Nostalgia was like at an all-time high. It was just things where he would flow seamlessly from his old music, you know, fingering, that kind of stuff, into the new music. And it was just like, you're God.
I mean, to be frank, too, there were not so many seamless parts where it was just like, yeah.
He would throw on the loop and then filter out and then something new would
like,
come
some of
in.
the transitions were very questionable.
Like,
but we were just like, we don't give a shit. Let's
but it was
go.
all his music. And that's what's so special.
Exactly.
And it's like, I've done almost 100 episodes of these, and I guarantee you at least 70 of them, everybody goes, well, I heard Skrillex, and then this happened. I heard Skrillex, and then I was like, wow, that's a type of music, like da 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 da.
Right.
It's really just always intriguing. And hearing like, let's just talk about Denver for a second. How long have you been in Denver?
Year and a half, roughly.
Oh, really? Okay, so you haven't been there for a very long time.
Pretty new. I guess I don't know if this is any importance, but I used to frequent the mountains since I was 4 years
Same,
old.
snowboarding.
Yeah.
All the time.
My parents, I was very fortunate. They had a place up in Beaver Creek, and we would go there every summer and every winter. They got rid of it eventually, but my whole childhood, we would go there.
It's such a, and I feel like you're a big nature guy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's
like my favorite.
I've never had such a balance in my life since relocating there, because I feel like there's very few places that you can have. I mean, I really truly believe that city is ran on music. I've never seen music on the state grounds like I've seen music there. Everything from techno to the Dead Beach Jamboree to everything in between.
It feels like the electronic music city capital in a sense.
It really does across the board.
Yeah. A lot of people like move to LA for music, and certain things are important out there, but like electronic music, the culture out there is so fucking rich and potent. It's unmatched like anywhere else.
It's unmatched. You can go out. People are so respectful. I think everybody's just stoned all the time, so you never get fights. Everybody's just happy,
so nice. Yeah.
And everyone's so nice.
A big adjustment from Chicago is like you always like shake people's hands.
I was born in Gary, so I know. I know.
Yeah, so going to Denver, like everybody's just like going for a hug. I'm like, oh, this is an adjustment. I'm down for it. Let's go.
And it's so welcoming, and I feel like it was a big adjustment just from the East Coast vibe. Let's go in general. I think when I moved there, everybody said you need to take a deep breath, turn around 3 times, and then expect an answer, and then expect something to happen. Because on the East Coast, you're going all the time. People aren't as warm and fuzzy, and I feel like people there are. They're not living to work, they're working to live. And I love that. And I think it breeds just a very creative, artistic culture. I live in Rhino, so I feel like I'm literally just around just like creativeness all the fucking time.
Oh yeah, Rhino's great.
It's such a great, and then if you want to disconnect, I'm a huge person where if I lock myself in my room for a very long time, I'm gonna kind of kill that creative vibe.
Yeah.
You drive an hour and a half.
Exactly. You find some inspiration out in nature, which is always there. It's always there. You go look at something nice, and like
hike. Everything.
Yeah, literally. Like hiking's one of my favorite things to do. It's always inspiring. I think that's something too why I love pretty music, is I'll go look at something nice and like remember that and be like, I want to create an atmosphere musically that represents or sounds like what I'm looking at right now.
I always feel like your music could be like the soundtrack to like a National Geographic walkthrough, which is great, which I love.
I'll love to score like a movie one day or something.
Is that like an aspiration for you, like long term? Yeah, that's I think a lot of now more than ever. You look at like Junkie XL, you look at like what Daft Punk has done. And it's very possible, it's very feasible to write in our skill set. I think a lot of times when you're really focused on, I don't know, it's kind of a statement that's not always correct, but when you walk into this kind of industry, you have this very kind of selective picture of how your career is supposed to go and develop. And I'm supposed to do this, and I'm supposed to do this, and I'm supposed to sign this agency and eventually write an album and do this and do that.
Yeah.
But with what craft and skill set we've developed, we can do so many different things, from like Foley to sound design to scoring to then doing our own personal project, and so many like collaborative efforts. For you, inspiration wise, I can definitely tell like nature is definitely like an inspirational thing for you. Do you kind of approach every song the same? Is it always different?
Definitely not. Definitely different. I just want to give a quick shout out to Hans Zimmer too, who's like
Interstellar.
Interstellar is like Interstellar is like the best fucking soundtrack. One of my favorite movies.
It is.
Solely because of the soundtrack. He's a god. But yeah, approaching each song it's definitely different. A lot of it, has those moments where I'm in nature, inspired by that. I've actually had a few times where this might be a little TMI for my parents out there, but at summer camp one time, the music festival.
Yeah.
I was on one of the One Too Many Doses of MDMA, and I was watching a Zed's Dead set, and
Love it.
I don't even remember like the music that was being played, but just like the vibe, the atmosphere, and like the sort of way the stage looked, the way the band looked, the way everything felt in that moment was something I sometimes forget stuff. But like I remember that moment so vividly. Went back the next morning to my house and like made the song called "Why" on my multiverse EP. And like that approach is again, it's always like from an experience, I guess, which it's always from that. Plus, music drives, inspired from experience, but in that sense, I guess I wanted to like create instead of something from like nature per se, something that was captivating in that atmosphere that I remembered in that moment. I was like, it was like dark, it was black and white, it was a great vibe in that sense where like it felt like cool and electronic and just like psychedelic in a way, but like not really. I don't know how to explain it, but it's always derived from an experience. But each experience, I guess, is just whether it's from nature or not, trying to capture a vibe of something I saw visually usually. So.
Would you say that, the music that you release and just kind of like your discography in general, I feel like there's kind of these two types of different DJs that are kind of like coming up in our industry right now and thriving. And one is like, hey, I'm trying to create a soundtrack to the environment you're in with your surroundings. And I feel like you're kind of along that line where then some other DJs are more kind of like, I'm a performer, like look at me, like I'm right here, like kind of ordeal. I think a lot of that kind of plays into like you wanting to score and you doing the whole soundtrack thing. The visual aspect always plays a huge part in electronic dance music. Do you play a part in your visuals? Do you kind of, how do you kind of bring that to life? Because it's such an important aspect of your project.
And I'll gladly nerd out about this because I've been so into it because I've been doing my first headline tour and I have the freedom to do what I want in that sense. As a supporting artist, you don't want to have that freedom, but doing your own stuff, whatever you want. And I have my own visual guy, I have my own lighting director, and we work super, super hard and detail every moment out. Usually on the tour set, at least, like yesterday's set, somewhat dial for like the tour set, every moment, every laser hit, every song, every visual, it's all fucking, all three of us are in the room. We're going through every single moment, working super hard, trying to get it all to be.
It's like a dream come true to have that.
Absolutely. Exactly. You get like, to have full sort of creative control on like how you want things to be delivered, and it is a dream come true, absolutely. But yeah, we work very thoroughly on every moment.
It takes a village. I think a lot of like consumers and fans don't realize, even though there's like one person standing on stage. I mean, I used to think the festival popped out of the box, like one of those fun toy boxes.
Right?
Like, oh my god, like Dreamland, Disney World.
It's kind of nice being ignorant to that in a sense. Where it's just like, I'm just like taking an experience. It is what it is. It's sometimes nice not to know what's behind the curtain.
And there's so many people behind the curtain that work every day to make like an artist's full vision, whether it's for your release or an album or a show, come to life to like, and as an artist too, it wouldn't need as much if we just got everything we wanted right when we started.
Yeah.
Didn't have to play those spider.
I thought that too, but I think it's just a floating black sperm.
It's like a bug. Okay. Shout out Alabama, round 2. That's something I love about Denver. There's not a lot of bugs.
Because it's dry.
I'd rather see a moose. I actually wouldn't rather see a moose. But like we see like real animals. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it's like not like gnats and mosquitoes and okay, I'm just complaining now. Okay, back to what you're saying. So used to think it popped out of the box, and when you realize how many people go on the back end, it's incredible. And there's always so many people to thank because when you start, there's not a lot of people that believe in the project. And then when people start to believe in the project and then people are working for free and people are like, we're bringing this vision to life. Yeah. And then you do the support tours and you do everything. And then you eventually get to those headline shows. When you start getting to make huge conceptual decisions, like with a lighting designer and with production designer, like it changes the game. And you're like, wow, I've worked so hard and I have this vision in my head of what I wanted this song to look like for so long. Yeah. And now it's possible.
Yeah. From day one, it's like, you know what you want to do, how you want to make it, or how you want to conceptualize it visually and all, like with the audio and everything. But yeah, I will say it's super, super pricey to make that happen. But it's fucking worth it. I like went into this headline tour being like, I don't want to make money on it. If I break even, that's perfect. If I lose a little bit of money, that's fine. But it's very, very pricey. But again, it's art, and I treat this tour in a way where it's my first headline tour. I'm gonna treat it like my last one because you never know. It could be your last tour too. So I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it how I want, do it right, and definitely spend way more than I can afford on it. But it's so worth it.
But the fans appreciate it.
Totally.
And all of your stops, so many of them were sold out.
A lot of them for sure. I sold out. Last week right now, they've been sold out, which has been cool. So hopefully the last 3.
Again, a good problem to have.
For sure.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for sitting down with me. This is so fun. We'll have to hang out in Denver.
Absolutely,
We'll have to
chill,
go snowboarding.
Absolutely.
This was lovely. Can't wait for your
EP. Snowboarding?
Snowboarding.
You're scared. I don't know if I'm cool enough.
I don't know if it's gonna work out. Okay. It's okay. No, it'll be great. I have an epic pass. I got an icon this year.
Okay, cool.
So I have both. We'll hit the mountains, we'll hang out, and you have a big summer run kind of all over the place. Is there anything you're specifically excited for? Festival wise. I know ConFest is probably one of those.
How'd you guess? Yeah. Con for sure. Probably just that one the most. For sure.
Yeah. But the ones that you decide to go the whole weekend, you're like, okay, I'm very personally invested.
Yes.
And then EP is in June, full EP.
Yeah, and I also like to touch on too, just like give people a heads up. I do have a house EP I'm working on. I've been like dabbling with house music, and the set I played last night, all the house music was original, and that was like my roots. So I'm like revisiting it now that I'm like elevating my production skills. So it's been really fun to make house EP. Eventually, played some other new tunes last night. Will be another EP that's in the more like classic Inzo realm, like Dirty Magic stuff. But another EP, and then I will eventually. Oh yeah, I have a couple collabs, Taboo, Mercy, they'll always be dropping. And then a whole bunch of shit with Dollar Stream. We have like several unreleased work in progress. Is like all really cool.
He has that Red Rock show coming up.
Yeah. I wish I could disclose some information about some shows with Dollar Stream, but it's some bullshit that we'll be doing this year. We have way too many songs we need to finish, and then I will try to do an album after that. Yeah. It's a foreseeable future right now.
You have a lot on your plate. Take it day by day. Enjoy it all. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks so much.
Enzo.
I love this like relaxed vibe.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks guys for watching.